Greetings, I'm back. I am going to be doing a quick overview of the APA manual. Now, why in the world are we covering APA, Miss Candler? Because in our world, the nursing world, we use the APA manual to document our resources instead of MLA format. So it's a necessary evil that you must learn. So here we go. It should look like this. If you don't have this edition, you have the wrong edition and you will need this edition. This is blue in color. If I were you, I would make sure I had it as we're going along. Also, go to the content module week 7 and download the PowerPoint and follow along with me. And you will see that I have a lot of different little posties up here. So if you've got some posties, have them handy so that you can mark some pages and keep them. And I know you can't see them real well, but that's how anal I am. My posties are a lime green color and a blue color. They match the book. Very anal. Okay, so without further ado, I will get off here and we'll get started on APA. Okay. So let's start with APA 101. What do we want us to get out of this? Well, I want us to be able to identify the content, how APA is organized, and how it's organized in a paper. Describe many of the mechanical aspects, including quotations, headings, and citations within the text. Describe the components of common references, including references of electronic media. Identify some common mistakes made, and then some tips to write a successful paper. You're very lucky in that APA provides you a sample paper that goes from beginning to end that gives you lots of examples of how to write the paper. And are you writing a paper anytime soon? No, so don't panic. All right, so here we go. Again, this is what your book should look like. If you have any other edition, it will not work. So what in the world is APA? Well, it was first published back in 1929, and originally a group of psychologists and anthropologists and business managers got together and said, we need some writing rules. If we are going to have professional publications, then we need to make it uniform, and we need to make the reading easy, and the citations need to follow a certain format. So it became adopted by the social and behavioral sciences. So that's how nursing got involved with APA versus MLA format. Whoops, I think I went, let me go back to the previous one. Yeah. APA then is the predominant language of our professional culture. So anytime you continue on with your education, particularly at the BSN and master's level where you have to write paper after paper, you will have to know APA inside out. So we're giving you an introduction to it. This manual is a style of writing, and it is your friend. So treat it as your friend. This is used most commonly by nursing schools across the country and internationally, as well as by most of your nursing professional journals. Okay, so let's start with the ugly word plagiarism. Ever heard of plagiarism? Well, it talks about this in two different spots. So page 15, so if I had a handy dandy little postie, I'd be marking page 15 and page 170 and writing plagiarism at the top. So plagiarism and self-plagiarism. What do you mean self-plagiarism? You can self-plagiarize, believe it or not. But it talks about plagiarism, and it says this is when researchers do not claim the words and ideals of another as their own. They give credit where credit is due. So if you don't do that, then you're plagiarizing. Quotation marks should be used to indicate the exact words of another. Each time you paraphrase another author, summarize a passage, or rearrange the order of a sentence, or change some words, you give credit to a source. So if you just take the front of a sentence or back of a sentence and put it in the front, that's still someone else's thoughts. Okay? So it talks about self-plagiarism on page 16, and it says all of the author's own words that are cited should be located in a single paragraph or a few paragraphs with a citation at the end of each. Opening such paragraph with a phrase like, as I have previously discussed, will alert readers to the status of upcoming materials. So just as researchers do not present the work of others as their own, plagiarism, they do not represent their own previously published work as new scholarly work, self-plagiarism. So that's the definition of plagiarism and self-plagiarism in your book on page 15, 1-10. Again, if you flip over to page 170, and I'm going to be looking and going through your book, it talks about plagiarism in 6.01 through 6.10. Again, it reviews the definition of plagiarism and self-plagiarism, and then it goes into how to prevent that. So let's look back at our PowerPoint. Claiming another's word or work as your own. That's a no-no. Plagiarism. When writing a paper or even posting a discussion, it's essential that you keep plagiarism in mind. Sometimes plagiarism is accidental, but that is why knowing how to cite a reference in text is essential. So we always give credit where credit is due, is what it comes down to. Now, quotation marks and page/paragraph numbers, if you don't have a page number, should be used to indicate exact phrases and words. So every time, even if you paraphrase another author in a paper or text, you have to give credit, okay? It's a violation of our professional ethics, and it will result always in a failing grade. So be careful about plagiarizing. Look at the example on the bottom of page 15 gives you an example. And there's also an example on page 170. Example of proper citation levels, and then it goes over direct quotes and how to prevent that. So let's look on the bottom of page 170. It says, reproduce word for word material directly quoted from another. So you do it, even if they made mistakes in theirs, you quote it exactly like they quoted it. Always provide the author, year, and specific page, citation, or paragraph number, okay, in the text, and include a complete reference in the reference list. And it talks about that on page 174. Now, if the quotation is going to be fewer than 40 words incorporated into the text, if it's going to be more than 40 words, then it shows you how to do that as well. So, an example there, it shows you on page 171. Interpreting these results, Robbins, ETAL, and others, 2003, suggests that the therapist in dropout cases may have inadvertently validated parental negativity about the adolescent without adequately responding to the adolescent's needs or concerns, page 541, contributing to the overall climate of negativity. You can see there this was a direct quote. Why? We've got the author, we've got the year, the part that was quoted is in quotation marks, and we've got the page number at the end, okay? Another way you may do that, it shows you down on down, and then it shows you how to do it if there's more than 40 words. You double indent in, and then you just put the author, the year, and the page numbers at the end. It talks about paraphrasing direct quotes and online materials on page 172. The accuracy of quotations, direct quotes must be accurate on page 172 as well. So make sure that you read over this. But the big thing that I will be talking about, I will show you so that you will know. And that is right here. Dun, 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 dun. In review. If you are ever writing something that's a direct quote in APA, you have to have quotation marks, okay? Followed by author, year, page number, or paragraph number. You have to have all those things. If you are paraphrasing something, you do not put it in quotation marks. No quotation marks here. But you still, at the end of your paraphrase, has to put in parentheses the author, comma, and year. You leave off the page number, and you leave off the quotation marks if it's a paraphrase. And then that's what it's all about. It really is that simple. If you remember this in APA format and how to document a direct quote versus a paraphrase, you will not go wrong. All right, so what about the structure of a manuscript or a paper? Well, the papers that you may have to write later on will contain a title page, a text or a body, a reference page, and it can contain an appendix as needed. Most of the time yours will not. And we will not make you include an author's note or abstract, so you will not be doing that. In the title page, you will include running head, page number, the title of the paper, the author's name, and the institutional affiliation. There's an example on page 41 in your book. So if I was you, I would have my handy dandy post-its and I would put example at the top of this page. And on page 23, 2-01 talks about titling. So on a title page, let's go to page 41 in your book and talk a little bit about the running head. The running head is an abbreviated title. And then where do we know it's an abbreviated title of? What's an abbreviation of your title? Your title is what's in the center of your page. So if you look on this one, it says, the effects of age on detection of emotional information. That's our title. So our running head breaks that down even smaller. So in this case, they left off the word information. You could have made that even smaller, okay, if you'd have wanted. But you have to follow these basic rules. The running head should be a maximum of 50 characters. That includes all the letters, the spacing, and the punctuation. So you literally have to start with the word running and go to the end and count every letter, space, and punctuation and have no more than 50 characters. If an example, if the title of your paper is going to be Using American Psychological Association Format in Nursing School to Write Successful Papers, then an example of your running head could be Using American Psychological Association Format. What did I leave off? In nursing school to write successful papers. Is it in the 50 characters? Yes. Take a look at page 41. I want you to note how the R in running is capitalized and the rest is all lowercase. So when the word's running head, the only thing capitalized is the word running. Then you've got a colon and a space, and then you have your running head. Your actual running head is always in all caps. This should be placed 1/2 inch from the top of your paper. So when you go get ready to put your running head in, you'll go down 1/2 inch. You'll type in running head colon and type in your running head. No more than 50 characters, and it is an abbreviation of your title. Okay, so you just break your title down. So the title page is also page numbered. It always starts with page 1. So when you get finished with this, you think, woohoo, I've really done something. I have finished a page. So put the page numbers on all the pages of your paper from the beginning to the end. They go in the top of the page as they are right aligned. All right, so the title page. The title should be typed in uppercase and lowercase letters. So look at the title here. It's in uppercase and lowercase with the example on page 41. It is centered between the left and the right margins, and it will be in the lower half of your page. You actually go down about 6 lines from your running head. So your running head was 1/2 inch from the top. Then from running head to your actual title, you'll go down 6 lines. This will also be the first line of your paper. The recommended length for a title is no more than 12 words. Never ever put abbreviations in your title. The title, of course, summarizes your main idea and grabs that attention. So look at the title page again. On page 41 is your example. Underneath the title, you have the author's name and the institutional affiliation. In this case, it's Christina and Elizabeth, and they are from Boston College. You'll notice that you can put the first name, the middle initial, and the last name. Always omit titles such as LPN, RN, MD, etc. And institutional affiliation would be which college you're affiliated with. So if you were writing this paper, or if I was writing this paper, it would have been Marietta Candler, University of Arkansas Community College at Batesville, because I am not allowed to put abbreviations in my title. So let's look here. An example of putting it all together. Using American Psychological Association Format in Nursing School to Write Successful Papers. Remember, that was my title example earlier. By Jane P. Doe. University of Arkansas Community College at Batesville. So this is a complete example of how you would put the title 6 lines down from your running head. So we've got your full example here. Skip down 1/2 inch from the top. Running head, colon, space, all caps. I abbreviated this title right here down to only 50 characters using American Psychological Association format. I went down 6 more lines using American Psychological Association format in nursing school to write successful papers. Jane P. Doe, University of Arkansas Community College at Batesville. So that's another complete example of how to do a title page. If you have any questions about how to do the title page, please contact me. There will be a quiz that you will have to take that will be due by March the 7th. So you'll want to go in and take that quiz. The text, your body, is the preferred typeface is always Times New Roman with 12 font. Double space between all lines. Woohoo! I'm tickled about double space. Never use single spacing in your text of your paper except in tables, figures. Use the function of your computer to make an automatic header for you. Remember, the header will include the abbreviated title, the page number, and it's 1/2 inch from the top of your paper. The actual words running head are only on the title page and not the rest of your paper, though. So if you look on page 41 where our sample paper started, you'll see there when you go to the abstract, which you won't be writing an abstract, but that's page 2 on this one. On page 41, they drop the word running head. So the words running head only appear on your title, then you drop it and only put your actual running head title on the rest of the pages. Okay? All margins are 1 inch. We do not justify the lines. That means we don't use that feature to make it look real pretty and equal at the end so that sometimes you skip 2 or 3 spaces. We use flush left style and leave the right margin uneven. Don't divide words at the end of a line. If you ever got to divide a word, bring it to the next line. Do not use hyphenated function to break words at the end of a line. So again, no hyphenations. You always indent your first line of your paragraph. Typically use the tab key, which is about 5 spaces, and that would be appropriate. When you're writing the text or the body, remember on the title page, we only wrote the word running head there. After that, we do not include it on the other pages. Again, let's take a look at page 42. Again, you can see how the words running head on page 3 of this document example was dropped. Okay. All we have in all caps is the actual running head title. So, in the text, how do we reduce bias? Well, if we check out pages 73 through 77 in your book, it tells you how to reduce biases. And that's talking about things like gender. It's talking about things like sexual orientation, racial and ethnic identity, disabilities, age, and historical inaccuracies. So read over that if you're ever unsure how you should phrase something. It gives you an example of several things in here that you can look at to see what's the correct terminology to use in your paper. Grammar and usage is on pages 77 through 86. I would mark those. If you're unsure about verbs, if you're unsure about subject-verb agreement, what pronoun to use, all of that is your basic English rules. Professional and formal language is expected at all times, regardless of posting in discussions or submitting a paper, or whatever you have to do. There are many correct and incorrect examples of grammars and usage in Chapter 3. So always refer back to that chapter if you have any questions. Now, if you have questions about punctuations and abbreviations, that's in Chapter 4, beginning on page 87. So these are Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, very detailed and excellent chapters that will help guide you in writing professional papers. Now, in your paper, you're going to write what's called a heading. So I would definitely mark this page, which is page 62 in your book. So let's turn to page 62. And yes, I have the word heading written at top. This will help you improve your organization and make it more readable. Do not use a heading for the introduction or summary. So in other words, I'm getting ready to start my paper. I'm not going to write the word introduction out. It is understood in APA format that your first paragraph is your introduction and your last paragraph is your summary without labeling them. Now, number of levels of headings depends upon the length of your paper. Most of the papers you will ever have to write will be only level 1 headings. For a paper with 2 levels, then use level 1, level 2 headings, and so forth. So what do I mean by levels of headings? Well, on page 62, it gives you an example. If you're writing a level 1, then your heading should be centered. It should be boldface, upper and lowercase heading. And it gives you an example of that under methods. Over here on page 63 gives you an example of all of these different types. Now, if you have to have 2 level headings in your paper, which you will usually not have, but let's say you had to write a paper, a patho paper, and you had to identify the etiology, the incident, and the actual patho. That's 3 little headings. Then you would write etiology, and you would put it in the center of your paper. You would make it boldface. You would do upper and lowercase heading. You would just write the capital E and then etiology in lowercase. If you had to write a paper with 2 levels, then you would flush left. The second level would go flush left, boldface, upper and lowercase. If you had to write a level 3, then you would indent, boldface, lowercase paragraph heading ending with a period. And again, there's examples of all these on page 63. If you had to do a level 4, then you would indent, boldface, italicize, lowercase paragraph heading ending with a period. And then a level 5 is indenting, no boldface, italicize, lowercase, ending with a period. Again, almost always, all you are going to have to mess with in this program is level 1. So that's all I would get used to. But the more level headings you have to have, then you just go down through here, level 1s, level 2s, 3s, 4s, and level 5s. All right, citing references within your text is on page 177. I would mark this handy dandy page if I were you. Because it's a table and it gives you the basic citation styles of whether you're using 1 author, 2 authors, 3 authors, and so forth. So, when a work has no author, you want to cite the first few words of the title or publication and the year. It also tells you about that on page 176. So, example, you could do AIDS care. You would do AIDS care, comma, you would put it in quotation marks and the date and the year, 2006, and put it in parentheses. Personal communications is another method of citation in your text, not included in references. So an example would be L. Bradley Springer, personal communication, November 18, 2009, if you ever talk to someone about personal communication. Now, it tells you on page 177 if this is a style of citation where it's only one word by one author. If it's the first citation in the text, you can say Walker, 2007. Subsequent citations, you could do Walker, 2007. If it's going at the very end, you could put it in parentheses, Walker, comma, 2007. So depending upon when you use it is how you will cite it. And it goes down through there. Same format, just different rules if it's more than one author. So look over that table real well. All right, reference page. There's an example on page 49 of our handy dandy example. Now, if you're looking at this example, you can see here after the words abstract, when we started on page 42, you put on page 42, it was page 3, which will be your page 2 because you're never going to do an abstract. You'll see we have the running head, half inch down. 1 inch down, we went back and we put our actual title of our paper. Then we double spaced and we started writing. And again, we didn't put the word introduction, we just started writing. There's examples there of how to do the citations within the paper using different article or different types of examples. You can see that there are also examples of level heads on page 44 in the example. You can see the word method. That would be a level 1. Why is that a level 1? It's centered, it's bold-faced, it's upper and lower case. And that's what yours would look like if you were using only level 1s. If you had to use a level 2, like this one, participants, member, so it came left, flush, upper and lower case, boldface. So it gives you examples in here also of how to do those level headings. Now on, if you're going on through there, it tells you on page, or excuse me, on page 49, gives you an example of the actual reference page. You can see here you still have the running head, 1/2 inch down. Go down 1 full inch and write the word references centered. Then you will start and alphabetize them in your reference list. You do not put personal communications here. You only put those within your paper. Place the list of references cited at the end of your paper so that you can keep up with them as you're going. References in the reference list are double spaced as well. You begin each entry flush with the left margin and indent the subsequent line. So your first one is never indented. Your other lines are indented. You can see here on this example on page 49, Anderson, AK, 2005. Look here at the title. It's Effective Influences. And see, they only capitalize in APA the first word of a title of whatever this is. In this case, affective. All the other words are not capitalized. Where did this come from? The Journal of Experimental Psychology. Now, in APA, every single entry or reference will have something italicized. So if you did not italicize something, go back and look, you did something wrong. In this case, you always italicize the name of the journal. You can see there it was journal volume 154, and it gives your page number. And then it gives something called a DOI number. And we'll talk about DOI numbers here in just a little bit. If it does not have a DOI number, and it actually just has page numbers, then you would put the page numbers. And that's the second example there. You'll see instead of a DOI number, it's got actual page numbers. All right, so that gives you an example of how to write the references. And there's several examples there about books and articles and different things for you to look at. So what about internet references? Do not give web addresses for the PDF files obtained from electronic copies or printed journals. In other words, you don't have to do the web address if it's the Journal of Nursing and it's a publicized journal. Then you would just do the journal like a regular journal entry. Limit the use of lay and non-professional internet sources. Try to use all professional sources. Turn off hyperlinks. There should be no blue or underline in your reference list. Give complete uniform resource locators, the URL for documents, not just the homepage of the agency or the organizations. So an example, here's an example of how you would do the full URL address. Well, what is a DOI? On page 188 and 189, it talks about DOIs. Have you ever went and looked at it, found a wonderful reference, and then about a year later you went back to it and it was gone? And sometimes it said, sorry, this page has moved, and it doesn't tell you where. If you had the DOI number at first, then that always lets you, that's a digital object identifier. It always lets you find that. If you know the DOI number, you can put it in and find where they moved it to, or if they took it off. It provides a means of persistent identification for managing information on digital networks. It begins with a 10 and always contains a prefix and a suffix. Okay. DOIs, and again, it gives you examples of DOIs in the system on page 189. DOIs should be included whenever available, and you can just simply cut and paste to avoid errors of the DOI. So if you look on figure 6-2 on page 189, that should be, you can see there down at the bottom, they have the copyrights 2008 by the American Psychological Association, and then it gives the DOI number. And they have just simply, that's where you would find that if an article has a DOI number. All right, as far as, spelling. Use the spell check on your word processor. Proofread your papers always, or ask someone else to do it, because some of us don't spell very well. And you don't want to get a lot of points off for spelling, because it is considered to be scholarly, professionally written at this level. Pages 65 through 70, it goes over the writing style in APA. We want it to be clear, concise, and provide logical communication. There again is a sample paper on pages 41 through 51. Always look at that if in doubt. Remember, no author's note, no abstract will be required. So what's our assignment? Oops, we have a quiz. It's located in Nursing Practicum 2 in Blackboard under Exams and Quizzes, and it's due by March 7th. We have extended the date because you had so much due this time. You do not have to use responders. Woohoo, woohoo. But do your own work. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Okay? So I have also published some wonderful websites to help you. This is APA style. They actually have a tutorial that will walk you through everything I talked about and go through the book. The Out English Purdue website is a wonderful website on APA if you ever run into questions and don't know what to do. And then there's another tutorial. You can simply copy and paste these in, or you can right-click on them and open the hyperlinks. Very helpful information if in doubt. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.